Unfortunately,
Hey,
the fun
look, it's
tweets
him!
have arrived at
Who
my
knew?
door, sirens blaring, and they're demanding that I give a statement defending my crime of enjoying Palworld. Palworld is a game that's become more popular than Stanley Cups right now, with an absolute explosion onto the scene, selling over 7 million copies in less than a week and reaching a concurrent player count of over 2 million.
And now you're saying it's
which
8
is the
million
second
as well.
highest peak
That's
Steam
crazy.
has ever seen, second only to PUBG, which is a game that was so popular that it was basically bigger than the Bible for a while. And another thing that really helped with this is the price point. Palworld is under $30. Meanwhile, every Pokemon game, even the older ones like Sword and Shield and Let's Go Pikachu, are still $60.
No.
And yet Palworld offers 20 times the amount of content and 20 times the fun of these modern Game Freak Pokemon games.
You can't really say
It's
the
a
fun
better
part.
deal. If you've been watching
'Cause
any of my
that's
streams
relative,
over
isn't
the
it?
last few days, or even just over the last few days, I've uploaded 3 videos on this bad boy. It's pretty clear this thing makes me smile. I've got some childlike whimsy when it comes to Palworld.
It makes me
It's
smile.
extremely rare for me to get as invested in a game as I have with Palworld. The game is surprisingly deep. It's more of a survival game that has a Pokemon element to it for creature catching, and I just love the entire package here. It's in early access, so it's expectedly buggy and glitches out the wazoo with so many flaws and so many problems, but it has so many elements in it that are done well enough and haven't really been blended together successfully in the past that it feels unique and really fun. The thing it gets compared to most besides Pokemon is Ark, and Ark is a game that I found so boring that it would probably cure anyone's insomnia if they were exposed to it for more than 15 minutes. It's also non-functional. I tried to play Ark on stream because my friends and I wanted to build up a really nice crew and eventually raid the devs in the game. But I couldn't even play it on stream because it's so infested with hackers. Anytime I went to a server, a hacker would go in and shut it down and kick us out for 10 minutes. So I couldn't even play that fucking thing. And Palworld just works. Like, even when the servers do go down from stress, they're only down for 5 minutes tops. Whereas in Ark, if you get into a server within 5 minutes, you've just done a speedrun world record. Now, I know I'm kind of gushing grannies about Palworld right off rip, but I want to make it clear I really like the game. So the drama was quite the head scratcher for me. So let's get into the actual meat of the subject. Palworld is exploding right now, one of the most popular games there is, and there is so much controversy around it with tons of people trying to make anyone that likes it feel bad for liking it, making all kinds of arguments against it, and I want to go through each and every one of these because I find it to be really surprising that this is where we're at right now, and in the beginning of 2024, that we're mad at bootleg Pokemon here for doing what Game Freak refuses to do, innovate. So, I've been very vocal about my distaste for Game Freak's work over the last decade and some change. I think Game Freak is the laziest developers in the world. They get the task once every couple years to go in and copy and paste their last Pokemon game with no real effort, and somehow they still fuck it up every time. The modern,
literally what we just
Pokemon games
said.
have been the same formula. They haven't changed anything. When they've tried with Arceus, they didn't really go full hog wild with it. They dipped their toes into a couple of ideas and then fucking fell flat on it with mediocre execution. They're too afraid and not talented enough to actually use the Pokemon formula to deliver anything high quality. Multi-billion-dollar franchise, the most fucking lucrative franchise in human history, and the Pokemon games still look like they're made by middle school students as part of some kind of computer science project. It's embarrassing. Like Scarlet and Violet barely even fucking worked.
Maybe
and
that's
now
the
we have
one.
Palworld that comes out.
Maybe that's the
from
one I was
basically
talking
an
about.
Indie studio that does Pokemon so much better. It should be celebrated that Pokemon is finally being realized for the potential of the concept. There is so much you can do with this, and Palworld is showcasing it, which is why it's so popular.
Love you.
So we shouldn't be content just accepting the sewage, the absolute rotten sludge that Game Freak feeds us when it comes to Pokemon games.
It's not just game. I mean, obviously he's going off about Game Freaks. I don't know much about Game Freaks and blah 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 blah. Obviously, but it's everything he's saying is accurate for just the general gaming industry these days. Obviously, I know Palworld's in early access, so therefore, I mean, I'm not a fan of early access anyway for other reasons. But I'm so what was I going to say? I've lost it. In the gaming industry, yeah, that's it. It's so rare to get a game that comes out that works. Like, but I mean, maybe my memory is like all skewy and stuff, but I don't remember back in the 2000s or whatever, you would get a game, buy it on a disc, put it in your computer, and it would be filled with bugs. It's almost like once we introduce the internet into the gaming industry, that it means because you can now hot fix things and you could do patches, that therefore you only need to make 50% of the game because, fuck it, you can make the other 50% whilst the game's already running. Let's start getting that money running in. Do you know what I mean? But at least with early access, you're expecting bugs. Do you know what I mean? But then so many games are released that are like released as a full final finished product, and then it's like, well, how many bugs can we find? I mean, we see it on this stream all the time. We're literally like bug magnet over here. It's like, it shouldn't be. It's so like disgraceful that the price of gaming is going up, where a AAA game is like 60 odd quid. Like, that's like over half of 100 quid. That's a lot of money. And then the games barely bloody work fully anyway. So to the point where when Prince of Persia came out and Baldur's Gate, these are the first two that come off the top of my head because I know they've been like the ratings are crazy good for them, like all the reviews and stuff. They released this game, and at least the game works. To the point where we turn and say, oh, do you know what? This game's so good, it actually works. That should not be a sentence. In the whole gaming industry, anywhere, not just Game Freaks, but anywhere where you praise a game that's completed, that took your money. Imagine buying a chair and being like, oh, well, at least the cushions are there. Buying a cooker and going, at least the hobs work. Like, no. Engineer dude ain't coming around. You don't go, oh, it's all right, the engineer's going to come around next month and they're going to patch it. We're going to get our last working hob. Like, do you know what I mean? So why have we accepted it in the bloody gaming world? We've added in early access now. So if a game really does want to start making money on a game before it's complete, like they've done to help fund the development of it, yeah, sure, stick it in early access. Preferably not forever, like some games do, but stick it in early access. But the ones that release full games, Pokemon games, bloody, I can't even think of any other games off the top of my head, like just, do you know what I mean? Like any game, like almost all games. I think every single game, apart from Prince of Persia, in the last month that we played, has had a bug of some kind. Like, it's insane, isn't it? It shouldn't even be a thing. No wonder people are going crazy about Palworld, considering, like you said, it's cheap. It looks like a cute game that we've wanted to, like, I mean, who doesn't want to do an open world, can live with and build with Pokemon? That's how I would always want a Pokemon game. I would want to live and build with Pokemon. Phasmo is still early access. Don't! Because that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to early access. But, like, from the sounds of it, this is exactly what Pokemon should have or could have been. And it's like, they're offering so much more. Yes, it's got bugs, but at least they're in early access and they're fixing the bugs as they go. Rather than it being a 60 goddamn pound game for the same game you played last year that doesn't even work. And yeah, sure, I really like this guy too. He's quite, like, normal with his opinions. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he might have all his, like, collection of stuff going on and all his nerdy nerd, but he seems quite, like, switched on. A little bit like Asma, quite switched on with what he's saying. He sees both sides of things, blah, 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 blah.
Because now we've tasted delicacy with Palworld, and it's so far from perfect, but it's still so much better than anything Game Freak has done recently. It's not even a competition. But anyway, sorry, I keep getting off like on tangents right away, but I'm really pretty passionate about this topic. So the first thing people immediately started to target Palworld for is the obvious, that it's extraordinarily derivative of Pokemon, even from its designs. There are so many Pals in Palworld that are basically a carbon copy of Pokemon, just with the color changed. It's actually the meme of, copy my homework, but don't make it too obvious, you know? And then you get the homework and the only thing that changed is the name on the paper, but it's still the same. Admittedly, that is the case with some of the Pals in the game. Not all of them, not even most of them, but a small chunk of them, for sure, are very clearly borrowing mini design elements from their Pokemon counterparts. So much so that my friends and I often refer to those Pals by their Pokemon name, because they're so close. Now, this has gone a little bit chaotic on Twitter, where people are calling things that don't look similar copies. So a big one was Pinking in Palworld being compared to the Penguin counterparts in Pokemon. And these two don't look even remotely similar.
No, not even a little bit.
They just take the concept of an Emperor Penguin and do something silly with it in different ways. This tweet sums it up nicely by saying that this actually showcases Palworld putting effort into changing a design concept around and making it their own. So it is a legitimate criticism to dislike how derivatives.
That's like no different from the fact that there are penguins in WoW. Do you know what I mean? That comparison right there is like, obviously you would want to make a PAL based on a penguin because a penguin's an animal that exists. And then, like, they're not even the same. So that's not even slightly got anything to do with each other. That's to do with the fact both companies have gone, penguins exist. Let's make a cute penguin. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm so sick of kind of being forced to pay my money for an unfinished, broken product in the hopes that whilst I'm playing it, they're possibly maybe going to fix it. Like, and annoyingly, because there's no alternative, we have to stop gaming. I would love to sit there and be like, well, I'm just not going to game anymore. But it's like, obviously I am, because I want to play games, because I enjoy gaming. But it's like, if that's the only option, that's it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, they have the power to do that because we're obviously going to keep gaming. Still shouldn't be that many bugs. Like, games just shouldn't be released buggy. I know sometimes you can't help it. It's like an undersight and oversight. It's an oversight and you miss this one little bit of coding. But when games just simply don't work, it's like, did you not have people testing this game? You know?
Some of the designs are and how it clearly borrows maybe too closely to quite a few of them. But it got out of control with people just saying that for every PAL in the game when it's just absolutely not the case. But this is a legitimate criticism that I think is totally reasonable to have and hold against Palworld. I too would like if their designs were a little bit more unique, for sure. That is one of my complaints about the game. Does it ruin my enjoyment of it? Absolutely not. It definitely doesn't. Is it a bit of a blemish on it? For sure. I think have absolutely no merit whatsoever. One of the major things people were saying day one with Palworld is that it's just an asset flip. This was a perspective shared by many that decided not to turn their brain on for the day, and they went viral with people pumping their fists like, yeah, it is an asset flip. This was a big one saying that it was creatively bankrupt and poorly put together asset flip of a game. This was another one saying that 10 years ago, an asset flip game like this would have been relentlessly ridiculed and also called it generative AI slop. We'll get into all the AI can of worms here in just a minute, but let's start with this asset flip component. Now, in the first tweet, calling it creatively bankrupt, that's totally fine to say that. Like I said, there are a lot of designs that are very clearly borrowed from Pokemon, but overall, the product is not creatively bankrupt. I haven't seen a Pokemon with Guns style game that has survival elements that are blended together pretty well with a really large world with quite a lot to do in it.
Exactly.
Granted, a lot of times, a lot of the biomes of the world are super barren and empty, but overall, I'd say that I haven't really seen any other games like Palworld, so I definitely wouldn't call it creatively bankrupt, but maybe he's playing some real heaters behind the scenes that aren't released yet. But anyway, calling it an asset flip, I think is some absolute smooth brain nonsense. Either you don't know what an asset flip game is, or you're just baiting engagement through being incendiary for the sake of some numbers on your tweets. There's just no way anyone genuinely thinks that about this game. I am a connoisseur of asset flips. If you watch my streams, you know I do something called Bad Game Night, where I'll go through Steam's new releases and play games that nobody has ever heard of, looking for the stinkiest, most foul abominations game engines are capable of pumping out, and most of those games...
What day did he say he does this on? Did he name the day? I need to be watching this stream! This sounds amazing! People should stop protesting for big businesses that can fend for themselves. Like, for real, don't worry about it. Oh, they just want their clicks on Twitter. That's it. Like, it's the same story over and over and over and over again. They just want their Twitter clicks. That's it.
Are legitimate asset flips.
Or to feel like they matter.
The game is composed entirely of store-bought assets, and everything is just jumbled together into an absolute mess that kind of works. Usually what it is some kind of open-world zombie horde shooter. That's your most notable culprit, your most common offender of being an asset flip. It just takes things from the Unreal Engine store, it takes the guns, the character, sets you in there, and you just randomly shoot zombies and other assets that charge at you, and that's the whole game. That's a fucking asset flip, and there's varying degrees of it, but that's your most egregious example. Palworld should not even be in the same sentence as asset flip. Does it use assets?
Oh, no,
absolutely.
literally.
You know what else does? Everything else. Every other game in existence uses assets to different degrees. Palworld is no exception there. There is clearly assets there, but it's not the bulk of the game. It's not entirely composed of it or anything like that. They're used in their product the same way they are in every other major release. It's not a fucking asset flip. And if we're going to play ball with this idea, you know what would absolutely qualify as an asset flip to people that believe this for Palworld? Dark and Darker. Dark and Darker is another game that I absolutely love, and this was a video game industry darling for a little while, and Dark and Darker is almost entirely composed of Unreal Engine assets that they bought and put into their game. They openly state that much of the 3D graphics assets were purchased from the Unreal Marketplace, and there are tons of links to them in the store that they used in their game. It's a ton of assets they used in it. Significantly more than Palworld. Why did I not hear a whole bunch of hoopla about Dark and Darker being an asset?
Literally!
That's weird. It seems really selective to just choose Palworld for this. It doesn't make any sense. You clearly haven't played the game and were grasping at straws for something to shit on it for because it's popular, is how it seems. Because it is just, by no definitions, an asset flip. But now let's get into some of the other ones that have been very controversial. A big one is the claim that a lot of it was AI generative. Now, this is a real problem that I think the video game industry is going to be facing very soon, with AI being integrated into games in a way that's going to be extremely scary going forward, take a lot of jobs, and produce a lot of slop. I think that is absolutely right around the corner. But right now, there is no proof at all that AI was used in any way in Palworld.
Welcome.
Right now, all that evidence is based off the developer, as well as a couple of statements I believe the CEO made, in a previous project. There's a PC Gamer article going over this as well that talks about how this AI claim is right now just based off of hunches. There's a ton of people playing Super Sleuth right now and investigating whether or not AI was used, and at the moment there's no substantiated evidence to back up any claims that AI was used in this project at all. Now, if it does come out that AI was used in this game, that will certainly change my impression of it. I am not looking forward to the future where AI is replacing real human ingenuity in entertainment. I am very much dreading that. It's extremely concerning to imagine
I do
that
wonder,
future.
sorry, back to the AI thing, because we know how much I love it. So, obviously, like I said, I think the AI thing is inevitable. I don't see the don't see the harm in it, because obviously I'd rather people make stuff than computers make stuff, but it is the way life's going, and we chose that, as I always say, by wanting our technology and blah 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 blah. But that aside, because we don't need to do the same rant over and over, I do wonder how long it will come full circle. So like I said earlier on, if right now AI is generating all their stuff, and then soon we're going to have everything's AI generated and nothing's original, and then after that some artist is going to come along and they're going to make something original and everyone's going to go, wow, that's amazing, and then everyone's going to go, AI stuff, I'm going to go to artists because I want all my games to be original and not be the same, and then suddenly all the artists get work. That is what's going to happen. Then the same thing's going to happen again. It's going to go round and round and round, just like flared trousers, right? Just like tartan skirts, just like pleated skirts. Like, it just is the same thing. It's always going to go full circle, where one day it's really cool, next generation's like, they're really old, next generation's like, do you remember? And then the following generation is like, these are really cool again. Okay, my mum used to wear leggings back in the 80s, and then in the 90s you were like kind of trampy and trashy, didn't have much money if you wore leggings. By 2000s, some people wore leggings and people were saying, oh my god, I'm not having leggings come back, I'll kill every person who's going to have leggings come back, I'm going to stop that trend. Come now, every girl's wearing leggings. The same thing's going to happen. So it's literally just the nature. It's going to go round and round and round and round and round. I wonder how long it will take for the AI to take over with the art, and then how long it will take for people to be sick of AI. Will it follow the same cycle as like simple things like clothing and blah 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 blah? Will it go faster because now we're bitchier and nastier in this era we're in now, where we criticize like that in an instant? Or is it going to last longer because we're lazier and we get more complacent and continue to just buy products even though we bitch and complain about them? Like, it's actually kind of like, I don't know which way it's going to go. To be fair, if AI could do a better job making games, I'm not against it. Humans are prone to mistakes. I don't mind as long as my game's good. Like, I'm sorry, it just comes down to it. Like, I'd rather people succeed in it a bit more than AI. But if people are making shit games, I want a good game for my money. Give me a good game. If AI makes shit games, I want people to do it to make a better game. But people are failing. Half the time, the games are rubbish and they don't work. So I think people are going to embrace AI more than they think they will, because they will that people just like to bitch and whine, but they will continue to buy the product no matter what. It's just what people moan when they don't even mean it. So I think everyone's kicking off about AI now. I don't think anyone's going to give a crap about it in 10 years' time. I think we're going to be so used to it. There was a time when if you play computer games, you were going to be a failure in society. There was a time when if you were a woman and you bared your skin, you were a certain type of lady. There was a time where if you were of a bigger body size, that you would be like looked down upon and shamed. Whereas now we body positivity embrace the different size of people. Women are like kind of like not allowed because it's the wrong term, but it's not considered a negative to bare your skin for cash in certain ways now. And it's like all of these things people complained about 20 years ago, and now they are the norm. So whilst we bitch and complain about AI right now, I think in 10 years time, in 20 years time, it will be such the norm that people won't even be like, it'll literally be laughable that we're all twittering it up and kicking off about it when it's just normal. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know if I explained that very well, but yeah, but AI also nailed the coffin for automation. Previously, you could have robots to assemble things. AI can replace humans controlling it. That's where the danger lies. AI is potentially controlling, which it's never wasn't previously the anchor to human workforce. AI should be used in coexistence as a companion and not as a replacement. 100%. I completely agree with that. I don't think AI should suddenly take over the world and do everything. I still think humans should still be like in control of stuff. But I'm like, AI making pictures for games, not that big of a deal. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's definitely still a struggle, but it is moving forward. Yeah, I just think, like, just basically, to summarise that whole thing, I think that whilst we're all kicking off about AI-generated images in games or whatever, this whole AI thing, I'm not talking about Skynet taking over. I'm talking about using AI right now to benefit the things that we do or to make our workforce, like, work job easier, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be laughable in 10 years' time. Just like if we had said back in the 90s, one day there's going to be machines in Tesco's where you can beep your own stuff and you won't need cashiers anymore, everyone would have gone, oh my God, they took our jobs. The robots are coming for us. They would have gone mental. And now we're like, I ain't queuing up at old Jane's Till over there. I'm going over to self-service. And then you stand there and you shout at self-service because self-service is like, please remove the item from the bagging area. Please remove the item from the bagging area. And we yell at it. But you know what? We're still going back to that same self-service next time instead of going to Jane's Till. Like, it just is evolution. AI is natural extension to automated production. Technology like this is newer. It's just an untouched area. People once made items hand by hand, one by one. Now we have big machines, robotic factories that are doing that all for us. I do get there's a danger involved. Yes, exactly. Well, basically, Shaw's literally just smartly said what I'm trying to say. But in this industry, it's a natural step for a larger demanding population. Shaw's being smart and has just reworded all of my Jane and self-service and took our jobs stuff into a nice, smart lump of text right there.
Where all of your entertainment is just part of an algorithm that the AI knows that you're going to enjoy and clap and spit up at. So if it does come out that Palworld used AI in a big capacity during its development, obviously that's going to change how I feel about the game, 100%. But right now, again, there is no proof of AI being used here, and yet some people are singing it like it's the gospel and 100% confirmed and true, based off nothing. Which is basically Twitter in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That's
now
literally
let's get to
Twitter
one that
for
I
you.
actually found to be the most interesting at the time. There was a Twitter thread that came out talking about how the models are exactly the same in Palworld to some of the Pokemon counterparts, basically insinuating that they kind of just took the models and tweaked them slightly but kept everything else intact. That they copied the models and made exact replicas. Which would be a big deal. If they took that and copied it for their game, that would probably open them up to a huge lawsuit from Nintendo, because that is literally just stealing their work. But then this morning, it turns out that the person that was posting all the threads going over, like, how the models are the exact same meshes and everything, was a bunch of hooey. it was a load of dirty barnacles. It turns out they were
Dirty
actually
barnacles.
doing like some dubious scaling in order to make them fit, so it wasn't exact meshes or copies or anything like that. And they even openly admitted that they feel regretful for calling it exact and this and that.
So basically that's what the other girl we were just watching was talking about, but she didn't quite say that they were altering the scaling, or if she did, I missed her say that. I didn't realise they were twisting the pictures to make them match, because that's not... Why even bother doing that? Why even bother doing that? What gain did that loser on Twitter get from making that post, apart from, well, I suppose clicks and likes on Twitter, but, like, do you know what I mean? Like, what kind of, like, self-gain, self-worth did he get from making up that bunch of crap?
Posted a pin tweet saying this: I am doing this because I think it's disgusting how much Palworld glorifies animal abuse.
That's our next topic.
What in tarnation? What the hell is even that? That is a load of poop with some fart on it. You're doing this because Palworld glorifies animal abuse. It's a video game. Someone also pointed out that Pokemon is literally sanitized cockfighting, which it is. I mean, you're making the animals fight each other, and they respond saying, I think that's bad too. So then where is this energy for Pokemon?
I'm sorry. I know we're going to be going on to it soon, so I won't go into too much on it. But Jesus fucking Christ. Like, if you think that that's animal abuse, what happens in World of Warcraft when you have to go and skin 20 cats and cut the horns off 10 rhinos and like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're like whipping animals. Like, I'm sure there's like a whipping quest in there somewhere. And like, do you know what I mean? You are literally out there killing all of the things. And then even in World of Warcraft, you catch animals, you catch with battle pairs, and then you make them fight. Hi, Corin. Do you know what I mean? Like. That's every single game that has animals in it that involves, like, do you know what I
mean? Like, it doesn't
saving
compute.
It for the article.
I can't tell if they're just trolling or not, but they have so many threads about how Palworld copied the exact meshes and, insinuating that there's so much foul play there. That it feels weird if it'd be satirical, because you went through so much effort to, like, take down Palworld with these claims, or like attempt to. It's so odd. It's a video game. It's not real. There's no animal abuse, and it's not promoting it. No kid's gonna play Palworld and go out, find some kind of exotic animal, and make it work in the mines. Like, that's not gonna happen. What is happening? What's going on here? So anyway, the claims about
I love it so much
aren't true. However, I wanted to do more digging, because even if you just look at it with the old eyeball test, the meshes of the models in Palworld are super, super similar to the Pokemon ones. The shapes are the same. A lot of the placement of certain appendages and stuff.
We're just going to have to go with it.
So I did a little sleuthing of my own here, did a little digging around, and I found a YouTuber named GoGo, who is a technical animator, and gave their perspective on this and talked about why the similarities in the meshes matters. Now, there are differences between them, obviously, like the topology of it is very different from Pokemon, but the general shape remains mostly the same, and some of the locations of certain appendages on other models is similar to the Pokemon one, or in the same location. And GoGo explains how this helps with animation. If you're looking to take an animation and bring it over to something else, because the shape stays the same, it makes it simpler and quicker. Now, I want to be clear, GoGo's not pointing the finger here, trying to accuse Palworld of doing anything wrong, and in fact even mentions that Nintendo could easily sue, and they'd already have all of the evidence. They probably would have already sued if this was the case, if Palworld developers were just taking their models and porting the animations over or something. Nintendo would have likely already taken action, because the evidence is just right there at your fingertips. It's pretty quick to access. So GoGo's just giving their perspective as an industry veteran here, that these shapes do matter, and since they're so similar, it does open the door to speculation on whether
most energy drinks.
I was like, what happened? What did I do now? Why is it broken now?
The world's best tasting energy drink.
Whether or not the Palworld developers copy and pasted things like the animation or something of that effect. It just leads to speculation on whether or not they're being truthful about creating from scratch. Again, GoGo isn't making any accusations against them, just stating that the shapes are important, even if it's not like exact one-to-one meshes. Just having the shapes be in like the exact same order and same placement is still a big deal in the profession, according to GoGo. Of course, I'm not in the industry, so I don't know, but still pretty interesting nonetheless. And another thing GoGo mentions that I want to mention is that a lot of people have brought up the fact that a lot of Pokemon are based on real-world animals, and thus a lot of the pals in Palworld are based on animals. There's only so many ways of conveying a snake, or
said
lamb,
this,
or a stingray.
or penguin.
Like, the shapes there are going to be pretty closely resembling each other, I imagine, because at its core, it's still this real-life animal that we know. So, like, a snake is going to look cylindrical and long across, right? So that could be an explanation for it, but since it is still so close, it does just have that level of speculation to it. Though I do think that argument could also work for shooters as well. So, like, there's only so many ways of conveying a certain gun, right? So I bet if you broke down the mesh and model of a lot of guns, comparing Call of Duty guns to Battlefield guns to any other FPS guns, you'd probably find the meshes look pretty similar there too. And I don't think that indicates that they're just copy and pasting the same shit. But again, I'm not knowledgeable enough on this area to really speak on it with any real authority. I'm just giving my perspective on it. I do agree that there's only so many ways of conveying like a snake and shit, but it's really odd how there are very similar elements shared in the mesh to Pokemon counterparts that aren't normally there on a snake. But anyway, there's still no concrete proof that Palworld developers took these meshes and are just copy and pasting this shit behind the scenes. So these were all the main controversial talking points used to shit on Palworld and say that we shouldn't be encouraging it, this game doesn't deserve its success, this and that. And I understand, like, some people being put off by it being too derivative, that's understandable. But a lot of the other things, like AI, there's no proof of it even being used in Palworld, and yet it's being used as this gotcha for why Palworld's the ultimate evil. Shit like that, I just think is reaching for controversy or calling it like asset flip. There's plenty of things to not like about the game. As I said, it's so far from perfect, but it's still super fun and significantly better than anything Game Freak has put out in a long, long time. So I personally am not super bothered by some of the designs being extremely derivative. I hope they don't go that direction in the future. It seems like they're actually going to be updating this game. They just released a roadmap already, and it's been less than a week, so they're already looking to keep updating the game and improving it. So I'm excited to see where it'll be by the end of the year if they keep up that energy, because I do think there's so much potential here, and it is showing that there's a lot of potential, a lot of juice left here in the Pokemon idea, the concept of creature catching, monster taming. So I've been really enjoying it. If there is big revelations about AI being used, or if it turns out that they have been copy and pasting Pokemon shit behind the scenes, obviously that would change my perception of it quite a bit. But as of right now, there's still no proof of any of that. But yeah, anyway, that's my full thoughts on the whole Palworld drama. That's about it. See ya.
See ya! Oh, I like him. Yeah. Kind of like, I agree with everything he said pretty much, apart from, you know, like I said, my different stance slightly on the development of AI, but that's obviously, like, that's not to do with Palworld. But I do agree with everything else pretty much he said.